Jeff Jarrett versus Kevin Nash for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, February 13th, the main event of Against All Odds, in a match Liam adored.
Yeah, this rocked. I love it. It's in the same way that I loved the Raven Jeff Jarrett match. I love this match. I'm kind of a sucker for like big overbooked messes where there's 1,000 run-ins and there's referee bumps and there's chair shots and there's guitar shots and weapons and people debuting and returning. I love it. I think it's fun pro wrestling spectacle.
Yeah, there are people, when they see interference or quote-unquote overbooking in wrestling, they immediately consider the match worse.
I like interference. I've stood atop this hill before. I am a man who enjoys interference in pro wrestling.
Yeah, an instinct I somewhat appreciate, especially when you watch like 90s wrestling where it's just it's unbearable the amount they do that. And you just never get any of the good wrestling because they constantly do the interference and the bullshit and the ref bumps and all that. So I understand like the fatigue when it comes to it. But like, I would always ask myself a couple questions. It's like, does it make sense for the story they're telling? What are my expectations for the match? Because for Jarrett and Nash, I don't expect a wrestling match.
Yeah. If it's Okada and Ospreay.
Yeah, I was going to make the exact example, not Okada, but the Ospreay-Omega match. If that match on January 4th was filled to the brim with ref bumps and interference, I'd be like, nobody wants this. I don't want this. This is not what I want out of a Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega wrestling match. Whereas you sit down and you watch Jeff Jarrett versus Kevin Nash, and you're like, what are you going to do? Fucking figure fours and arm locks? Like, of course it's plunder and ref bumps. It was a similar thing happened actually this weekend at Hard to Kill. I saw some of the reviews of the Josh Alexander Bully Ray match, which had like the Good Hands run in, it had Tommy Dreamer run in, it had Josh's wife run in, low blow Bully and hit with a Dudley Dog. It had like all of like the story elements of the story brought in for like this big dramatic showdown with the big evil Bully being conquered. And there's some people who's like saw that overbooking and they were like, no, I'm overbooking. It's like, what do you want out of a Bully Ray match? Like,
overbooking isn't inherently bad.
It's not. It depends on the circumstances. It depends on the situation. As I said, if you went into the Styles and Daniels match on this same show and you did all that bullshit, I'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you doing this in this match?
Yeah.
Stupid, dumb, go away, bad booking. Whereas here, it's Jarrett and Nash. What do you want?
Yeah. 100%.
So the story running through the show is that Dusty Rhodes has banned the guitar. Jarrett can't use it. Similar story to the Ron Killings one last year, where if he uses it, he will be stripped of the title no matter what, whether the referee sees it, whether or not, any of that. If he uses a guitar, he will be stripped of the title. They love their show running angles on these pay-per-views, so they do another one here where Jarrett has his attorney Dagger trying to overturn the ban, trying to threaten Dusty illegally, all that stuff. None of it happens, so you get to the match itself where, to circumvent the guitar ban, Jeff Jarrett pulls a cello from under the ring.
It's so good. This is pro wrestling, baby. Like, see, Jarrett gets it. Just be a goof. This is a goof thing to do.
It is amplified by the fact that he tries to hold the cello the same way he holds the guitar by like the top of the guitar, or the top of the cello. I don't know the words. And then the neck, I suppose, yeah. And it breaks in the middle and falls to the floor.
And then he just whomps him with it. I'm glad he didn't give up.
Yeah, and he starts attacking the knees with the cello, and he has this big ass cello case that he pulled it out of that he also starts attacking the knees of Kevin Nash with. We get the tremendous moment of he doesn't actually hit Nash with the cello. It turns out Nash jackknifes him on the cello.
Awesome.
They do the classic walk and brawl to start the match, including my favorite moment where they go backstage and Nash Irish whips Jarrett into the catering table, and Jarrett completely flips the table, and Don West is just fucking outraged.
He's like, what am I supposed to eat?
Yeah, he's like, I was gonna use that for supper.
Supper's the best word to describe it.
It is. It's the fact that he used supper that really popped me. So after all the cello business, we get the run-ins and interference. We have the debuting no-named man.
You know his name.
Yeah, no introduction is needed. Not 9 Inch Nails. No introduction needed.
It was totally a 9 Inch Nails shirt.
This is the debuting Billy Gunn, who does not currently have a name and will go through quite an ordeal of getting a name, but it ends up being Kip James, so we'll just call him Kip James. Kip James makes his debut. He waffles Nash with a chair. Nash kicks out. Sean Waltman runs out. He hits Jarrett with a spin kick. He hits him with the Bronco Buster. This is return, by the way. Sean Waltman's not on the roster. This is his first appearance since 2002 or 2003. He did that one tag match. And then he hits the X Factor and Jarrett kicks out. They do a bunch of other nonsense. Kip James comes back. He tries to hit Nash with the NWA title, but BG shows up, pulls the NWA title out of Kip's hands. These are the former members of DX, as Mike Tenay tells us multiple times.
I wasn't aware, so I'm glad he mentioned it.
So Jarrett hits Nash with the belt. Nash kicks out. Jarrett hits the stroke. Nash kicks out again. My favorite one is the X Factor one, where there's also a near fall that Jarrett kicks out of. And if you look at the crowd, there's so many in the crowd who are like, oh, come on. That he keeps kicking out. And then Jarrett hit a low blow and another stroke to finally get the pin, retain the NWA title, and Liam's favorite match on the show.
This match rocked. I loved it. 4 1/4.
Yeah, this is one of those. I went 3.5. I wououldn't go north of 4. But it is one of those where it's like, I have no problem with the nonsense in this match. Like, this match would have been worse without it. What are you gonna get between Jarrett and Nash in 2005?
Yeah, exactly. This is the best case scenario.
Absolute chaos. Absolute utter TNA chaos. Waltman was said to be excited about TNA and said he wanted to work TNA but not indies. Billy Gunn was also said to be motivated and excited about this chance to make something of his career after several derailments in WWE. He's hungry to succeed, says a source. We'll see how that turns out for both of them. If you remember, the Jeff Hardy is excited to work for TNA. That didn't last very long.
Yeah.
Waltman had his back injured 2 nights earlier in Tijuana, taking a bump into that hard ring in his first match in months. He was hurting bad to the point that they didn't know whether or not he'd be able to perform on the show, and he was even in a wheelchair the morning of the show. He looked pretty darn good when he was out there, though.
Yeah, he managed to turn it on, and the adrenaline was pumping. He came out dressed like he was straight off the set of Wrestling Society X.
See, you just can't remember the name of anything related to that show.
I remembered our show's name, but I couldn't. I was like, it's not Review It For Her.
Right off the set of Review It For Her, sitting in on our podcast recording.
Yeah, what's his podcast? It was like 1 2 360 or something. Like,
I've never listened to it, but I'll take your word for it.
Oh, it has the all-time great podcast quote with Denise, where she's asking him, "Oh, how did you feel about working in TNA?" It's like, I came in doing tag stuff. Like, did you want to go to the X Division straight away? And he just goes like, "Well, I was heavily on crystal meth at the time."
Yeah, I saw that doing the rounds this week.
And she just goes, "Well."
And that was like early Denise in wrestling as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was like I read and watched that podcast because it's a podcast about his TNA run, and I went and watched it. And at the start, yeah, you'll never believe what she said. She goes, "Oh, I'm just about to start my first show on Fightful."
Oh, good for her.
And I was like, that's the beginning of where she begins to break out into the wider wrestling knowledge.
Did you learn anything from that Sean Waltman interview?
He was heavily getting on the crystal meth at the time. Yeah,
but maybe about this TNA run?
That he said Jerry contacted him in 2003 in January about coming into TNA, and that he felt he felt good that he was even thought of for something like that, but that they were doing the NWO thing, and unless they were going to be able to offer him a ton of money, he just couldn't see not doing the NWO thing at that time.
Yeah, you take that money while you can get it.
And then after that, that's when he's like, yeah, let's give it a shot.
And then he burned the bridge, and burned the bridge again, and we will talk about him burning the bridge another time in 2005. But we will enjoy him while he's here, because I actually think he secretly has a kick-ass run this time.
I'm looking forward to it. I've always liked Sean Waltman.
Well, that's always the thing. He's always been a fantastic pro wrestler.
Did you remember when there was a ton of like hype over the Generico stuff in Chicago?
Yeah, I watched that match. That match is great.
When and then like I saw someone the other day that was like, he was like only 48 or something when that match happened.
No, he would have been like 38, right?
Was it 38? It might have been 38. Sorry, yeah, it was 38. I got my years mixed up in my head.
Because I was thinking he's not even 50 yet, which is insane.
Yeah. Like he was only like 38, and then like now. In my head I did the math. I was like, oh, when he did that match with Generico, he was like the same age Omega is now.
Yeah.
And people were like, wow, look at this old guy coming in having this excellent match. What sorcery has happened?
Yeah, that was always the thing with him. And that, like, obviously the road has owned that man more than it's owned a lot of men. And he always looked a lot older than he actually was. And always, obviously, he never like had a sustained string of performances that matched his talent, I don't think. Like, he'll have a run here in 2005 TNA that I think we'll both enjoy. And then he had just some sporadic, occasionally popping up and doing stuff matches. But it, like, when you watch his early stuff, like you watch those early matches against Jerry Lynn, which is very much X Division before it was X Division, very much even like WCW Cruiserweight Division before there was a WCW Cruiserweight Division. Like, those matches are fantastic. You watch his 95-ish stuff where he's 1-2-3 kid having like competitive television matches. Those matches are fantastic. The dude's a tremendous pro wrestler. But obviously, a lot like Hall we talked about earlier, a man who had his demons very much through his career that prevented him from reaching at least the peak he could as a worker, never mind as a star.
Yeah, but I'm looking forward to seeing some more X-Pac stuff. Yeah, very fun.